All right, I'm here with Jordan, the founder of StratDev, who recently got acquired. Jordan, how you doing today?
Doing all right. How about you, Andrew?
Doing good. For those that may not know you, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a builder at heart. I love to build things, and I think I'm pretty okay at building from, sorry, 0 to 1. My bad. We're not going the wrong way, the right
Yeah.
way. But with that, multiple time founder, countless failures, but a couple of successes. I've built, bootstrapped, scaled, and sold 3 businesses by the age of 27 years old, most recently being StratDev. And so with that, excited to chat with you a little bit more about that today.
Yeah, StratDev, that was a big exit. Tell me about the business. What did it do? What problem did it solve? Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. To put into simple terms, we turned a dollar into more than $1 for most of our clients, but that was at least the reason why they started working with us. So we were a digital marketing business at heart. We worked with a lot of tech startup companies. So think of like anything coming out of like YC or Silicon Valley, recently funded companies that essentially promised their investors that they would get a good return on that investment, and as such, now need to go execute on some growth for that business. So they would come to us as a company, and we would implement and manage and execute performance marketing campaigns for them to help them again get $1 into more than $1. And so that went pretty well. I built that for 5 years. I started in college at UC Santa Barbara and grew it all the way to a relatively nice sized company. By the time that we sold that company, we were ranked as a top 100 performance marketing company in the United States.
Damn, that's incredible. How'd you get into that? Were you a marketer before? Did you teach everything yourself? Like, how did you become such a good marketer?
Yeah. YouTube is the short of that. I went to UC Santa Barbara, as I shared. I did not, if I'm being honest, learn anything as an economics major that was directly applicable to marketing, or if I'm being honest, being an entrepreneur as well. And so, actually, funny enough, my entrepreneurial journey started actually one of the first days that I was at UC Santa Barbara. I walked into my economics class, super excited, bushy tailed, ready to learn econ, right? And after 90 minutes of that class, I walked out actually pretty disappointed because it was quite theoretical in nature. It was not applicable or practical by any means. And so instead, I went to my dorm room and thought, what's hot, what's popping back in 2017, and back then drop shipping was super popular. And so I went to work and I built a Shopify store. That company was called Axiom Apparel. Put, I don't know, $500, which was the $500 in my bank account, into ads. Performed terribly, had to shut that down. But I still had that little bug. So I started something else and that failed, and I started something else and that failed. But after the fourth time, I started a custom college apparel company called College Clout, and grew that as a freshman all the way to my senior year to a really healthy, reasonable size. And so with that, I did all of that marketing by myself. I taught myself how to write a blog post, how to generate any level of SEO traction, how to get customers, how to get press, how to build partnerships, how to build an affiliate network, all these things. And so all of those kind of how-tos were actually search queries that I put into YouTube and watch other people in real time figure these things out and teach at the same time. I learned from those teachings, and built a company from scratch, and again bootstrapped through that as well. And so all in all, when I ended up selling that company as a senior, I thought to myself, wow, I have this really amazing case study in the palm of my hands, being my own company. I want to go do this and help other businesses grow and scale. And so that was pretty much the inception of StratDev. It started off as a one-person band, being me, helping other companies, e-commerce companies specifically, grow their businesses as I was able to grow mine.
Amazing. It's incredible how much of entrepreneurship is just creating movement. Like you started one business and you obviously have to learn how to do all this stuff. You got really good at the marketing, getting customers, getting users, and then you sell that business. That gives you an idea for another business. That's incredible.
Exactly. It's a flywheel of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, tell me, how'd you get the first customers? Did you run like your own playbook? Did you fire up, some paid ad campaigns and target, your ideal ICP? What did that look like?
Yeah, good question. So I wrote the cardinal of business actually for this, being But I had this awesome case study in the palm of my hands, or so I thought. And so I went out to, our first prospects, probably, if I'm being honest with you, like door to door, in Santa Barbara, going business to business, seeing if anyone want to work with us. And so it was very difficult. I was 18 years old I was 20 years old back at that time, but I probably looked like I was 18, right? You can see for your viewers out here, I have a little bit of stubble, but that's the most of the beard I can grow. Back then, I was clean shaven. I looked very much like a little kid. And so they would hear this, seemingly little kid come to them saying, "Hey, I can, trust me with your money and I can turn it into more money for you. Look, I did this with my company," right? And they saw just like their son, right, saying something to a parent, right, where it's like, it's cute, but it doesn't really hold that much weight. And so it was very difficult again to get clients because I was more or less written off. And so what I did instead is again worked for free. And so I said, you know what, screw it. I need more case studies. I need more testimonials. And so what I did is I went to business owners, and instead of saying, "Hey, pay me to go work for you," "Hey, I'll work for you for free as long as you do two things. One, write me a video testimonial, and two, we're allowed to use all your work as a case study." And so with that, we worked at 3 different businesses. One of them was actually another entrepreneur at UC Santa Barbara named Christian. I believe we built a website for them, and then we ran some advertisements for them. And Christian's father ended up being a pretty prominent CEO of a branding company based in the neighboring town. And so he saw the work that I was doing, hit me up, and he's like, "Hey, you do actually some pretty good work. I would like to bring you on as a partner for this deal I'm trying to close. We need paid ads segment. We're a branding company. We can handle the website stuff, but we essentially need to bring traffic to that website. We don't have the capabilities in-house. Do you want to have a conversation about what that looks like?" And so that individual's name is Randy. Randy gave me that first opportunity, ended up closing a pretty nice sized deal as a first customer through that. So kind of, again, snowballed into something that turned into the start. And so, with that first customer, I was able to, get our first employees and so on and so forth.
Nice. It's again like just creating that momentum where you can't get customers initially because you got to build some credibility. So you go out and work for them for free and create the case studies. I think that's such a good strategy. Um, what made you decide to ultimately sell the business? Because you had a ton of happy paying customers, you had a repeatable engine for getting new customers. What ultimately made you decide to sell?
Yeah, yeah, it's a fantastic question. Ultimately, I was excited about building something else, and so that's something else now being materialized a couple months after acquisition was something that I had really wanted to get into for quite some time. I'd also looked at myself, just genuinely, honestly, and introspectively in terms of what my own capabilities were in terms of running and growing the business. And so in the 5 years of us or me running the business, I was able to grow the business about 118% year over year. So almost doubling that. And
Dang.
so doubling becomes much harder, every consequent doubling, right? It's easy to do doubling in the first year, that much harder the second, so on and so forth. And so just looking at myself saying, "Hey, can I continue to, for example, double this business? Or does maybe someone else that has a little bit more experience, has the expertise to grow something into 8, 9, 10 figures, so on and so forth, be the better fit for running and also owning this business?" And so it's a little bit of the blend of the two. And hey, I think it's the right time to hand this off to the next heir of StratDev, and then secondarily, while I go do that, let me go start something else. Let me go build. As I shared with you right in the beginning of this podcast, I love to build. I love that 0 to 1. That's what gets me really excited, charged up, and amped up in the beginning of every single day. And so here I am building from 0 to 1 again.
Makes a ton of sense. I talk to so many entrepreneurs where like a lot of the value that they create is always in the 0 to 1 phase. It's what they love to do. They get the business off the ground, they find the initial customers, they get it to millions in revenue. And that's an ideal time to sell because you've created a lot of value there. And if you're able to sell the business, find a great buyer to take over what you built, and then start a new company and create that value again, I think it's super smart.
Totally. And so even playing off of that, one of my mentors had shared with me really early on. It's like, there's one person that's going to take you from, zero to, $10 million, and the next one that's going to take you from 10 to 100. A different person is going to take you from 100, so on and so forth, right? But the 100 to a billion guy would do terrible going from 0 to 10
Yeah.
million, right? And then so vice versa as well. And so with that said, it's just, again, different phases of the business, different maturity levels of the business require different operators, different owners in that business as well. And so to me, it's not a necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just kind of that natural path of progression. And so again, I just saw my end sight
Yeah.
coming too. So yeah.
Makes sense. Different skill sets. Totally different skill sets and, almost like personality types to execute a 0 to 1 phase and a 1 to 10 and 10 to 100, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me about the acquisition process. What were your expectations and how did it go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in Sao Paulo, Brazil when I had decided, this is what I want to do. I want to go and sell that business. And so, as I shared with you before, this is my third exit. I had self-brokered the other two acquisitions and run that process, that sales process from A to Z. Not because I didn't want to work with a broker. If I'm being fully honest with you, I didn't know that I could bring in a broker. And so it was a little bit of, rough learning by doing. But, I had that prior experience. March of 2025, decided that I wanted to go sell the business and started prepping at that point in time. So let's get all of our books in line. Let's, make sure that the team is solidified. Let's, extend those customer contracts. Make sure it looks really sexy, attractive, and appealing to, a prospective buyer. And so we got that ready over probably 2.5 months. I think we launched on a plethora of different sites, including acquire.com. Shout out acquire.com. I think in June of 2025. And I personally had the high hopes of getting to a point of acquisition around like September, October time. I think as a lot of really fast growing and ultimately just attractive businesses see, you're going to get or attempted to get courted a lot, especially in the early times. At least how I see it is before you sign an LOI, and for the listeners not knowing what an LOI is, a letter of intent, which essentially is when you sign exclusivity with a buyer. It's like being a hot girl at a bar, right? Everyone wants to go talk to you. Everyone wants to go, say like, hey, your business is great and we're really interested in this, and start asking questions, right? Because as a seller, the ball is in your court, right? There's a lot of different buyers that are, trying to court you to sign that exclusivity for them to dive deeper into the business, and also not have to worry about other buyers, right? All these other buyers, when they're talking to you pre-LOI, know that there's other buyers and that they might have to go outbid this other buyer, right, to be that best offer for you to sign their LOI. And so we ran a really tight ship. We ran a really great sales process. As a result, I think we spoke to 215 total buyers on and off.
Wow.
We got 11 LOIs from a mix of private investment vehicle companies, from a mix of other bigger marketing firms, PE companies that wanted to do roll-ups, PE companies that wanted us to be the kind of mitochondria of that cell and roll other companies into us. The whole 9 yards and whole plethora, right? The whole shebang. And so that was a very fun time. We got all of those LOIs in by the beginning of August. We signed into the right one, and it was absolutely the right buyer from that point all the way onwards. Because of the size of the deal, there were bank loans involved in that as well. And so through those bank loans and institutional kind of investment vehicles, that was the thing that slowed us down. And so what turned into a hopeful September, August closure extended from October to November to December, all the way to January, where we ended up closing January 30th. And I can tell you all the stories, Andrew, of the ways that we had to go navigate all of the hardships of that. But it was definitely a difficult sale, not due to the buyer by any
Yeah.
means. anything, the buyer was the reason why the deal ended up going through. Is because that the buying entity as well as myself had such a strong relationship, and even through the other turmoil and hardships of just what happens once you sign an LOI and all those different things that could go wrong or things that you get blindsided with, we were able to work together as a team to be able to overcome those. And so a couple of dark times turning into more positive ones just due to that amazing relationship with that buyer. So, if there's a lesson to be learned there, having a great buyer and choosing that truly right buyer is deeply important to make sure that you do transact at the end and you have a successful closure to that acquisition.
100%. How did you keep everything on track when things were going that long? Or how did you maintain your sanity with that long of a delay with the bank financing?
Those are two very different questions. In terms of keeping things on track, I think the same personality traits of me being a half decent entrepreneur, right? It's tenacity. It's being bold with statements. It's hey, get your shit together, kind of things when stuff might not be together. And then, in terms of sanity, from being fully honest, friends and family, there are times where I had reached out to mentors saying, I don't know what to do. I'm losing nights of sleep over this. I'm freaking out. There were times that, as a man, I shed some tears, over it as well. It is tough. And especially when you think that everything is going so perfectly, even in our situation where I felt like the crown prince getting 11 different offers. Oh man, this is gonna be easy, a cakewalk, right? Nope. Something will come and bite you in the butt. But again, to get to a successful closure, you have to have that tenacity to turn around and fix that problem and move forward, right? Because there are again going to be problems that you need to fix. So having people around me to help walk me through this, tell me it's okay, help me see the light at the end of the tunnel, and even before that, right, just figure out how to stay composed through the entire process, especially when things got very difficult.
100%. It's so important to have just people you trust and admire in your corner through times like that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And the deal's not over until the money hits your bank. Like there's so much truth to that statement.
Yeah.
I think and you didn't do this, but I think, one of the worst things you can do as an entrepreneur is like celebrate when you sign an LOI or get super excited before the money, clears your bank account because
You,
things
you
can just happen. They're unexpected.
Yeah, this is an acquire.com podcast exclusive here. I haven't told anybody this outside of the people who ended up attending, but in September, when I thought we were, days away from closing, I actually ended up renting this massive villa in Bali because I was in Bali at that time, inviting all my friends. I'm not even kidding you. There's probably like 300 people at this party, and all celebrating the fact that we were about to close. Couple of days later, I received a couple of new pieces of information.
Oh
Oh, we had
no.
to go push it 30 days for this reason or that reason, so on and so forth. And so, yes, looking in retrospect, probably should not have done that. It's really funny because all of my friends that I invited when I actually posted that I had sold the company were like, "Dude, I thought you sold this like 6 months ago." What happened? Right? So it was a little bit interesting to have to go explain that. Well, so did I. So didn't work
Yeah.
out.
You got it over the finish line. That's all that matters. I have a similar story where we had a false start where we had closing date. It wasn't nearly as lengthy as yours, but flew like a lot of team members in. We were gonna have this like Friday afternoon party. Didn't close. Everyone had to fly back, and then when we finally did close, like no one was there to celebrate with me because everybody we were like a half remote team. But again, it's just part of the process. It's how it goes.
That's right.
But I'm curious about the buyer though. What about them made you decide to sell the business to them? You mentioned that this buyer was exceptional. What made you get that vibe early enough to make the right pick? Because you're right. Like there's a lot of buyers where, when these timelines happen, they could get skittish or no longer interested in the deal. But when you find a great buyer and they see the value in what you built, they'll stick around through these delays, understanding like this is a good business. I want to see it through.
Most definitely. So, again, I know I'm speaking from a point of privilege because most sellers don't have 11 LOIs, sat on their desk, and the flexibility and options that I had. And so, um, in my reality, I did, right? And so I was able to be very selective and very picky and go back to a lot of these buyers saying, hey, these are my terms. If you don't accept, I'm off to the next, right?
Mm,
So with that, the buyer actually did not have the most ideal terms if you're looking at it from a price point perspective. I chose the buyer, HSR Capital, for three reasons. The first one was based off of just the offer in itself. The offer was very thoughtful, very well thought out. It was definitely on the higher end of the offers that we got from a monetary perspective, and what I think that I would have made out in terms of total consideration, as well as structure. So there was that, right? And that was a playing part to it. I'm not going to lie by any means. The other part is, with StratDev and any digital marketing agency, at least before the agentic AI era, was composed of people. And so I fully and truly honestly believe that the team came first. Culture was the most important thing to me. And I wanted to make sure that that legacy of good culture was going to be able to transition over. And so I asked all the buyers, very bluntly and honestly, like, what are your plans with this? Like, can you guarantee that everyone has a job 6 months into the future, 12 months in the future? Are you going to enable them? How are you going to enable and empower these people? Are you going to enable and empower these people? Are you going to switch anything up? How, when, why? All those questions. And so the managing partner at HSR Capital, who is now the president of StratDev, was very much a people person, a genuine individual who, didn't just tell me the things that I want to hear, but I believed it. And especially going through those hardships, which were some people hardships as well, right? I was able to see him before we ended up actually closing in real time, through his actions, reassure me of what I thought was the case before I signed that LOI. So it felt really good to go through those hardships together and see how he handled those obstacles. But yeah, to make someone to make sure it's someone to be a good leader and make sure that the team was well taken care of and that culture came first. And I was handing the torch to somebody or an entity that would take good care of that team. So that was a very big box I want to check off. And then the last thing is also confidence in being able to get the deal done, right? Again, you were the hot girl at the bar. Everyone wants you. Same as, guys going to a hot girl, they'll say anything to, get that girl, right? And so it's kind of like having a little, BS radar where you need to like really understand what they're saying, really have the confidence that when you sign into that deal, that it is going to transact. I had learned actually from my second acquisition that you got to be just like, you got to pull all the formalities and be bluntly, transparent with that and say like, hey, you try any funny business, I have another LOI, I'll move over and I'll cancel this immediately. And then secondly, and I asked this verbatim, if there's anything that pops up, no, what did I say? I'm trying to think of it verbatim. I said something along the lines of, are we on the same page that you will move forward with this transaction? No matter what pops up, less of fraud, right? If you find fraud, I understand why you pull out. But if it's not fraud, are you going to transact? You have everything that you need to be able to like very confidently move forward. Once we sign this LOI, if no, and you need more information, let me send it before we sign an LOI. Because again, that's exclusivity. You're locking yourself in. That's the only legally binding thing in that LOI agreement. And so that was very important to me. And so I got that verbal confirmation. Yep. Like I am 100% into StratDev. We are going to make this happen one way or another. And sure enough, there were things that were like seemed almost impossible to overcome without getting into the specifics of that. And we were able to overcome them. But again, it's that tenacity. It's that deep want. I can promise you that, if it wasn't that buyer, there's a very, very high likelihood that when certain things crumbled down, they would not want to rebuild, that they would not want StratDev that bad or realize that they didn't want StratDev that bad. And so, just honestly laying the odds and prediction, probability, I guess, of like, are they going to close? And so they were quite high on that prediction.
That's amazing. I mean, I love how you just put so much time and effort into picking the winning buyer because it's super, super important. You know, there's a difference between closing and not closing, and not all the times the highest price is the direction you should go. There's a lot of other qualities that you looked at, like, you know, looking after what's important to you, your legacy, being on the same page post acquisition. I think you handled all that perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate that. But also, I don't think I would have handled that well at all if it was my first go around with this acquisition. Again, I had two other acquisitions prior that I had taken all these learning lessons from to be able to then apply to this third one. And I promise you, the first acquisition, I was screwed in every single way possible from that you can really imagine. And so, again, it's lived experiences to turn you into better in the next go rounds.
Love it. If you were talking to another entrepreneur and they were looking to sell their business, what's like two pieces of advice you think you give them?
I think intention matters a lot. Are you looking to exit because you are absolutely burnt out, dead and dying? If so, you got to find a little bit more fire. It feels like the end when you say, "Let me go exit, let me go acquire." It is the beginning of that end, and it requires you to actually be burning a lot hotter than probably the rest of your experiences. Maybe there's little spikes throughout that entrepreneurial journey of building that business, but I promise that that last acquisition, you're gonna have to turn on those burners. You cannot get complacent. You cannot get lazy by any means. So that's one. Uh, Another one is making sure that you have the right advisor or the right counsel to make sure that you don't find yourself in problems. It's really easy to go the wrong direction or make a mistake, right? Throughout that entire process. Again, I have made a ton of mistakes. I even probably made some mistakes, in this StratDev acquisition, but because I had that experience, I was able to avoid that. If I were to have made the same mistakes as I did on, for example, the first acquisition, I would have came out probably millions of dollars with a lesser outcome than I did with this one. And so, um, the difference of just knowing what to do or having the right cancel or not is literally, in some cases, 7+ figures of a difference of, what the outcome is for you as a founder. And so, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to have a good counsel, a good team, and one that, is aligned with you and wants the best for you.
100%. I mean, there's just so much that goes into getting a deal done. Having the right people in your corner can be everything.
Yeah, totally.
So what's next for you? You were
Yeah,
successfully acquired. What's the next chapter look like?
a lot of Mai Tais on the south of Spain beach. That is what is for me. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Maybe half kidding, but I am one truly and honestly taking it a little bit easy. I started my first company when I was 18 years old, freshly into college. I had built company one, and then I built company two right before I sold company one, and three right before I sold company two. And so it's just been a consistent effort where I have really not had any time to just relax and breathe. I'm 27 now, almost a decade of just hard work. And so now I want to just enjoy the fruits of my labor just a little bit. And so we closed January 30th. It's currently June 23rd when we're recording this podcast here. It's been ish about 4 months or so, 5 months, if my math serves me correctly. I've been traveling a lot. I've been enjoying life. I've worked on myself, my health, my relationships with family, friends, girlfriends, as well. And so that's been really rewarding in a lot of different ways. The world is not just business; it's not just making money. And so, just again, being like a more well-rounded individual than just business. The other side of things is, continue to be an entrepreneur. A builder is going to build. And so I started a venture studio called Next Up Ventures that is really boring business that invests in cooler businesses as well as spins up new businesses. And so we have kind of two legs to that investment arm as well as kind of like a incubator from that we're building businesses again ourselves internally inside. So that's really good. We have two businesses that we're spinning up currently right now, and then also made a small handful of investments over the past couple months too, deploying some of that acquisition money, putting it
Right
together.
on.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, Jordan, I'm sure you're gonna keep crushing it. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing your story and just learning about your journey. For people that may want to learn more about you or follow you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, totally. Go to jordancalderon.me, www.jordancalderon.me. That is my personal website. Probably should refresh it by the time that you are listening to this. It will be refreshed. You have my word. That has all my social media. That has all the cool news articles about me. That has also my personal email, as well as a place to grab some time with me if you want to chat about anything. I'm an open book. I love to talk to other entrepreneurs and help them in any way possible, give back where I can. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Right on. Well, Jordan, congrats again on the acquisition, and thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Andrew. Cheers.